Did you know that India has the highest illiteracy rate of any country in the world? %37% of the world's illiterate are Indians. %58% of our kids don't complete primary school. %90% of our children don't complete all levels of schooling. All these statistics point to an education crisis. But what's the solution? I'm Manvi Dhillon and you're watching DuPont presents The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero. And today we're on a quest for zero poverty in education. It's heartening to note that the government is beginning to scale up educational infrastructure. 10.5% of the government's budget is devoted to education. But it's going to take widespread collaboration to achieve zero poverty in education. Collaboration between the government, educational institutes, civil society, and innovators with a vision. On the show today, we ask, can science and technology be used to drive access to education? How can we build a system that will ensure equal opportunity of learning for all? Aditya Nataraj has strong views on the subject. As director of India's largest educational foundation, the Kaivalya Education Foundation, Aditya's mission is to make quality education a fundamental right for every Indian. How do you think India fares when it comes to primary education?
Well, you can either look at the glass as half full or as half empty. If you look at the positive strides that India has made in the last 10 years, we've expanded substantially the number of schools we have. So we have schools within 1 kilometer of 99% of the villages in the country. We've expanded our teachers, we've expanded the right to education bill, and we have a new curriculum framework which is supposed to be one of the most progressive in the world. But on the bad side, the half-empty side, it is that 50% of children in grade 5 in India still cannot read a paragraph in their mother tongue. They still can't read mama, khana, khata, hai. And that's the really sad part. The quality of education is really, unfortunately, much below what we would require for a country with the aspirations that we have.
What, to your mind, then, are the obstructions to higher quality education? What's coming in the way?
We're teaching in multiple languages across the country, from Hindi, English, Malayalam. Every language in the country is school systems are trying to teach in. Two, there's so much socio-economic diversity. We're not a homogeneous country. There are tribal children who have never been to school before, and there are other English learners who have been to school for 4 different generations. There are social issues that we're trying to handle because there are communities which don't yet send their girls to school, struggling with a lot of still social issues before actual learning can happen, because it's an extremely new phenomenon for a majority of the population.
Our education system suffers from a shortage of schools, classrooms, teachers, and resources. Because of the poor quality of teaching, children often drop out in primary school. Those who stay on learn little. How do we ensure equal access to education, regardless of age, gender, location, or personal circumstance? How do we start from scratch and build an invincible new approach to education? Well, School in the Cloud is one such idea that has the power to revamp the entire education system across India. Nestled in the lap of nature in Chandrakona in the district of Midnapur in West Bengal is this unique lab. The School in the Cloud is slowly transforming the way education is imparted in this town. Hi, Shugata. Hi. The brainchild of Shugata Mitra, a professor of educational technology at Newcastle University in the UK. The school is an experiment introducing the concept of minimally invasive education to children living in remote villages. Why are you here in Chandrakon? What brings you here?
Well, it's actually almost 15 years of work, but to put it in a very small nutshell, the first bit of work is that children, given the internet and working in groups, are capable of finding answers to fairly complicated questions. What happens if we come to a place where there is no possibility of a teacher? So are they not going to have a school at all? Or can the internet replace the teacher?
Describe hole in the wall, and then I'd like you to describe how you see school in the cloud. But first, hole in the wall.
Well, hole in the wall was an experiment done in 1999, and it had no objective really. It simply exposed a group of slum children to a computer in a slum, and because in a slum you can't put a computer just anywhere, I had to embed it into a wall. So that's when the media called it the hole in the wall. People thought they would not be able to do anything because of language and because of technology, but they proved otherwise within a matter of hours. So that experiment really changed, I think eventually changed the entire world's views about children and computers and how they relate to each other.
And the outcome of the project has produced many bright sparks like this Class 7 student. Krishnendu Koshari is excited about visiting the lab every evening after school hours. He enhances his learning skills in these unsupervised sessions through Google search and in the presence of an appreciative granny.
हमारे टीचर बप्पादा वो स्काइप को टाइप करके ग्रानी क्लास को चालू करता है और वो जिस ग्रानी मैम के साथ हम बात करते हैं वो कुछ क्वेश्चन देता है और हम दोस्तों के मिलके वो क्वेश्चन का आंसर ढूंढते हैं और जब डे क्लास नहीं होते तब बप्पादा हम लोगों को एक भी क्वेश्चन देता है और हम लोग को वो ढूंढना पड़ता है.
If you had an admiring adult, somebody who says, I don't understand what you're doing, but you guys are obviously very clever, then the learning goes almost 3 times faster. So, and then in England, I invited British grandmothers in the Guardian newspaper. I said, if you're a British grandmother, if you have access to the internet, can you give me 1 hour of your time for free so that I can Skype you to children who don't have access to you? So what you see out here, the school in the cloud, is in a way the hole in the wall
Taken indoors.
turned inside out, okay, or outside in if you like. So it's a chaotic environment and you need that chaos because otherwise learning doesn't happen. Secondly, you need the absence of supervision, which is what makes it controversial. And thirdly, you need the presence of an admiring adult sometimes.
The universal grandmother approach, which is not tied to gender or age, enables the child to study in an informal setup. This is Manvi in India, but I don't know whether to call you a granny or not, but I'm assuming that for the school in the cloud, you're a granny, right?
Well, that's yes.
Grandpa.
Yes. I think it's non-gender specific.
Yeah. This show is called The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero. What do you think is the overlapping territory between this, The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero, and School in the Cloud?
Well, I have pretty much mixed feelings about that. To me, zero illiteracy in this country means the ability of everybody to be able to write their names on a piece of paper. I don't think that's an important ability anymore, so maybe the idea itself is obsolete. Would we rather have children who can write their names in ink on a piece of paper, or would we rather have children who can search the internet and find out things for themselves? I would definitely think the latter. So yes, zero illiteracy, but first you have to redefine what literacy means today, as opposed to what the government defines it as.
It might not be an acceptable practice in most schools to create an environment without teachers, but School in the Cloud is one model that truly exemplifies the emergence of learning out of creative chaos, setting the sky as the limit. A strong innovation that challenges the current schooling system by refusing to be limited by location. But language is a barrier. Well, science has a solution for that too. After the break, meet a man who's designed a visual language that's catching on fast. The power of Shunya, Quest for Zero, will be back in a moment. Here we are at a school only for children with special needs. Education for children with special needs has to evolve in India, especially for children with communication difficulties, who must learn to learn in a completely different way. It's incredible how technology in the hands of the right innovator can make the task less formidable. The work of Aavaz is a perfect example. Every day is a challenge for 19-year-old Tharunika. Cerebral palsy not only makes her movements difficult, but has also affected her communication abilities.
Initially, I find it very hard to communicate with her because it was frustrating for both and for my child, because if she wants to communicate with me, I can't understand. Then immediately I started with the gestures. She wants to play with them, but because of non-verbality, she doesn't. He can't communicate with others and play with others, other children.
Inability to voice their thoughts and needs holds back children suffering from autism or cerebral palsy from living a fulfilling life. And it was this belief that inspired Ajit Narayanan and his team at Invention Labs to develop the Aavaz App, a picture-based software that is filling a critical gap in the lives of many like Tharunika.
Which one? Which one do you want to select? Breakfast or lunch?
Lunch, dinner.
Okay.
So were you drawn to children with special needs, or were you exposed to them and hence the technology evolved in response to what you observed? You know, how did it come about?
On one hand, there was a very strong sense that we wanted to do something that has a high social impact, and there's very little that I've seen that has as much social impact as seeing a child speak for the first time with a device you've created. I consider myself an inventor first. I love creating things, and I think there's an incredible joy in seeing something that you've conceptualized actually become a device in front of you. And in the area of Aavaz, I did see a huge potential for technology innovation.
So let's get down to basics. For those who have absolutely no idea, what is the Aavaz app?
This is the Aavaz app, and you can see that it's on an Android tablet. It's available on Android devices and the iPad. The way it works is that it helps children communicate by sequencing pictures together to construct sentences. The way the app works is that the child has a number of different options that they can pick from. So there are a number of different words and categories, and they would tap different pictures. For example, I'm going to say, I want to drink water. So I've selected I want to, and then when I scroll, I'll see a whole bunch of categories which are relevant to the child. Then I would go into eat, and then I would say drink. And then if I scroll down further, I'd see a whole bunch of things to eat and drink, and I can go there and I can say cold water, for example. So I construct that sentence and then I speak it out. So the idea is that when you do that, you're able to convert pictures into speech.
Building on the success of Aavaz, Ajit and his team are now preparing for the next big thing, Free Speech, an app that will allow its user to rebel against rules of grammar and language. What does the Free Speech engine actually do? Can you give us a demo?
Absolutely. You see that the Free Speech app allows you to really construct sentences not in one word after another, but in a slightly different way. And this is how it works. I tap here and it gives me a list of words, and there are a bunch of words covering different aspects of vocabulary and language. The thing with free speech is that you can start a sentence from anywhere because different languages have different word orders. I'm going to start with the word think.
Think.
You can see that when I choose the word think, I can create different forms of it. I can say that it happened in the past or it happened in the future. And then I'm going to say,
who thinks?
This is the interesting part, because as soon as you finish putting one word into free speech, the next word that you create is not the next word in the sentence, but the next word that has a connection with the word that you've already selected. So in this case, for example, you see that it asks you the question, who thinks? And so I tap that, and then I'd be able to select, for example, I think.
I think.
And then it will ask me the next question.
What do I think about?
So I'm going to say, think about, I think that you should stop. So I'm going to say stop.
I think that to stop.
And then it will ask me a question about
that
stop.
Stops. Do I think?
And I'm going to say that you stop.
I think that you stop.
And then it will ask me the next question. So it says stop what?
What do I think that you stop?
And then I'm going to stop playing.
I think that you stop playing.
You see that at every stage it prompts you to construct the next part of the sentence. I think that's what we've done in the free speech engine. It's a mathematical model of the grammar of the English language.
Back at the Spastic Society of India School in Chennai, where Aavaz is used, hopes are pinned on new technologies like free speech.
Initial process would be he may be just playing around, understanding what it really means, and if he knows what it can do for him, you got a break. And then it is for the teacher to structure based on his communication needs and his language needs, all of which would be determined by his cognitive level and to what extent he can imbibe the information.
This show, as you know, is called The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero. Do you think that both the Aavaz app and the Aavaz free speech engine can achieve zero language barriers as a notion, as a concept?
Absolutely. I think communication is a fundamental right of every human being. And just because you can't express something, either because you don't have the ability to do it physically or because you don't have the language to speak it, it doesn't mean that you have nothing to say. I think, achieving zero communication barriers because of language, because of disability, that's a vision that I have, and those are the kinds of products that I'm trying to build.
Aavaz, an app that allows children to talk, to communicate, to learn. Today you've also seen a school in the cloud, run by a granny in the cloud, a classroom that breaks national and geographical barriers. Both these innovations make us feel that the possibilities are endless. But are they really? Once again, let's ask Aditya Natraj, director at the Kaivalya Education Foundation. Aditya, today we've seen two innovations on the show. One which is a school in the cloud, the other which is the Aavaz app and the Aavaz free speech engine for children with special needs that helps them communicate. What do you make of both these innovations?
I'm very excited about both innovations. I think leveraging technology blended with the traditional brick and mortar model is really going to be the future in this country. It's going to be, when we started off with a walking stick to give to people, we don't look at that as technology. When we put on a light bulb so that children can study late, we don't look at that as technology. So I don't think this is highly revolutionary or something. It is just an integral part of children's lives. It is going to be so ubiquitous in 10, 20 years from now.
It's interesting that you don't see it as radical, because as an education outsider, I would have said it's radical, but you actually see it as complementary to the current bricks and mortar traditional classroom that we're all familiar with.
Absolutely. I don't think it's just complementary. I think it's necessary. There is no way we can solve this problem. There are certain things that a teacher can do. For example, I could teach you math. When you have an emotional problem, I can solve it. But I'm not going to know about an unusual thing. I'm not going to be a repository of all the world's knowledge. I, as an individual, am very curious. As a child, I'm curious about horses. Is the teacher going to know everything about horses and be able to answer the question? I can't limit my knowledge just to the textbook. This knowledge is available. So I think technology is going to help us access that. And especially in special needs as well, the teacher is not going to be able to deal with every individual child and give her the sort of attention. The Aavaz app helps me mediate by myself. The teacher is not going to be available all the time. The Aavaz app makes it possible for me to go to a supermarket. I'm not able to express myself. I could show it on the app and show it to a supermarket saying, I want to buy a toothbrush. So technology is going to be an extremely integral part of our lives.
Flesh out that thought in greater detail on why you consider the Aavaz app as a huge step forward for children with special needs that are challenged in communicating.
So the device serves multiple purposes for children with autism or children with cerebral palsy because their ability to express themselves vocally is limited. However, their ability to recognize pictures, they're very intelligent in various ways. And in order for them to be meaningful participants in society, unfortunately, communication is extremely critical. To just do your daily chores, to be able to go to the supermarket, buy stuff, to be able to go to a cinema theater, to be able to interact with friends, everything requires communication. Our whole society is based on being able to communicate your needs, negotiate your needs with someone else. And Aavaz seems to make that very easy, simple, and plausible. It has a whole repository of over 5,000 words. It slowly learns. It has different languages in which it can be offered. So there's a whole set of things which it's complementing the individual. And I think that is so critical. I mean, when you put on a hearing aid, you no longer look at it as technology. You just think of it as normal. The Aavaz app is going to be the hearing aid for autism children.
Aditya Nachar, thanks very much for your insights on the part of Shunya Quest for Zero. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much, Manu.
Access to quality education, one of India's biggest challenges. But today we've seen two innovations that boost access. One for regular kids and another for those with special needs. Well, that's it on this edition of DuPont Presents The Part of Shunya Quest for Zero, a show that celebrates science and innovation, technologies that could secure our future, human ingenuity that could reduce our challenges to zero. Till next week then, goodbye.